point is that we need to know the direction that it sends us. In other words, we spend this kind of money for a consulting firm to do a study. Will that commit us down the road to actually competition? In other words, is the intent to just give a fair and look at both sides of it and then act on what we think is best for the city of Lubbock, the LPNL, or is there another reason behind this to make it happen? And that's really my concern, because we're talking about a lot of money here for a consultant.
Who is your question?
Or anybody that's in the room.
Let me get the information. That's what the citizens have asked for.
I think what we indicated is that we would conduct a study to talk about the best way to operate in the ERCOT marketplace, and that would include opting into the competitive market. That isn't. I don't think that that's a prejudgment that that's what we're going to do.
Well, that was my concern, because it's hard to spend the amount of money and then expect us not to use it.
Sorry, we just step back in here. So obviously we're on this item. Just take one step back, just for the public consumption to know exactly what it is that we're doing here. The option for a municipally owned utility in Texas or an electric cooperative that participates in ERCOT, in 1999, Senate Bill 7, they deregulated the IOU market in Texas, and they exempted the municipally owned utilities, of which there are 72, and the electric cooperatives, of which there are 75. And at that point in time, they said, we will give an option to those entities, should they choose it, to opt into the market voluntarily. And they set out a pathway in which a muni like LPNL, Austin Energy, CPS Energy of San Antonio, or a co-op could join the competitive market. But one of the most important items is that once that decision is made, it is irrevocable. You cannot go back. And so, since 2002, when the market was deregulated, until present day, there has only been one public utility, being Oasis Electric Cooperative in South Texas, that has chosen to do that. And they, like us, were in a unique situation where they were in the midst of a buyout of facilities, and it made sense for them to make that transition. No other entity has done that. However, there have been points in time where there have been studies that have been conducted to look at both the co-op and municipal side of it. As recently as 2013, Navigant did a study for the Texas Public Power Association looking at munis and the risks and the benefits of a municipal utility opting in. And I would just say that from that study, none of those municipal utilities have opted in. And so, as we went through the PUC process, we told the commissioners, we also told the public that should we be granted access to ERCOT, that we would do a comprehensive study looking at whether or not it is feasible for Lubbock to join the competitive market. And I think what's important for today's conversation is that a vote on this is not a vote to opt into the market. And I understand absolutely your concerns about if you spend the money to do a study like this, you feel obligated to then therefore go forward. But what I would say is that the cost of this study is in line with where the cost of service studies we've done in the past have been. Plus, this incorporates financial rate impacts, stranded costs, distribution and transmission costs, business processes, what it's going to take to get our data systems to conform to the competitive market, what it would take on the regulatory side to check all of the boxes. So there are a bunch of different hurdles that have to be gotten over in order for the council to make a decision for us to opt in. But we promised the public that we would study this so that when that conversation takes place in the future, there will be a document that shows every single benefit and every single risk. And I'll tell you that, you know, when you look at the Navigant study of 2013, there were far more risks than there were benefits. And so, we obviously have legal obligations and we have technical requirements that have to get through. We may get to the end of this and this study will show that it's not feasible. But one of the most important things that I'll just wrap up with real quick is that in talking to Navigant, who is, who we are bringing today in terms of a partner on this, we really stressed that this document does not need to be one that only shows one side. It needs to show the full view. And as we work through this process, which is slated to take 9 months, that this be done in a public fashion and that we gather input from the board, we gather input from the council, and at certain points in time, we have public meetings in which we can take input from the public. Because one of the interesting things is when you look at this, it was 2013, but when looking at it, in the deregulated market, you saw that 59% of residential customers chose somebody other than the default provider or the local entity. 64% of small commercial businesses chose somebody other than the local, and 81% of large businesses chose somebody other than the local. And so to your point, as part of this process and communicating this, it's going to be the fact that different rate classes may have different opinions on whether this is good or not. And a lot of residential customers may fall in that category of saying, I don't want to shop, it's too confusing, I don't know where to go. Where an entity, say like a Texas Tech, has the ability to really research this, go out and shop the market and take advantage of it. So there's a lot of room in between that's got to be investigated to see if it's beneficial to everybody.
A couple of questions, Matt. Do you think, number one, this company is based in a town that is opted out? Will they draw on that experience to make part of the study of us? And the other question that goes along with it, you say they've had two others that they've done this for?
They did a study for the Texas Public Power Association, which looked at the munis. There's another entity that we also looked at that did it for the cooperatives.
If they have, what was the outcome of those studies?
Sorry.
I think that those were proprietary and confidential.
Yes, they were.
Outcome?
The actual studies themselves were confidential documents for TPPA.
Yes.
Well, what they did is,
Weren't they implemented? I mean,
that's all
No,
I'm not asking what they did.
The short answer to your question is there's not been a municipal that has opted into the competitive market, and obviously they need a study showing the risks and showing the benefits.
No,
But it's also important to point out that if you look at San Antonio or Austin, for example, they're going to have any number of contracts that run out for a long period of time. They've also made investments in generation. They've got a lot of stranded costs that we don't have here. And so it's important to have somebody take a look at what it takes for any public entity to opt in. But it's also important to look at our individual system, where we're situated, if it makes sense for us, because council will ultimately have to decide whether it makes sense for Lubbock, and if we should go forward, if it's beneficial to everyone.
Well, we have another unique situation too, though. A good portion of Lubbock is under the service of another power company that does not opt in.
Right. Of those 75 cooperatives around the state, South Plains Electric Cooperative is one, and so they don't have competition where they
Plus the
are.
fact that the surrounding panhandle is to another power company that doesn't have any kind of opt-in at all.
Yeah, Amarillo is obviously serviced by an investor-owned utility, but they don't have competition either. So, I mean, we would obviously be the first in terms of moving into this market, and I think that needs to be looked at because, there are constraints and no other city's been able to do this.
But I think that just reiterates the point of why we need to study. Because we're the only community who's tried to move into ERCOT from SPP. And also we would be the first community to actually adopt integrated competitive market.
Well, I have no problem with the study. I just don't want us to make an investment that dictates what we do afterwards.
And I think it's going to be important to hear from voices like yourself and those on council that have concerns, because getting all of that input put into the study is how we kind of make sure that we've turned over every
We
single
turn over
rock,
all the
because
rocks, right.
they're gonna bring their expertise and what they've looked at in other entities, but we know best what our system is like, and so we need to make sure that they know that, so they take in all contingencies. For sure.
Mr. Bell?
Would it create a problem if I offered it, I mean, in the contract side, if I made a friendly amendment to amend it to a 9-month term with a 3-month option instead of 12 months with a 6-month option? We need to get this done. I think 9 months to a year, if they can't get it in that time, something's wrong.
We would need to go back to the contractor and make sure that that was okay, since it's just the form that they agreed
Well, I
to.
understand that, but do you know anything that you think would just clear the whole deal if we went back and said the board has approved it with these provisions?
I'm not aware of anything, Mr. Bill.
Could we approve it and then ask them to change it? That doesn't sound exactly right.
No, we can,
What Mr. Bell's saying is that he would move to approve the contract with a term of, right, and Mr. Bill was saying 9 months with a 3-month extension, is that
right
correct?
now it's 12 and 6, I would change it to say 9 and 3.
Now, that would be within perception.
Yeah, we need to get it going.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think probably what you're looking at there, Mr. Bell, is kind of our standard language for these type of agreements. I don't think it's anything that Navigant insisted on. So I think we should be good modifying that.
Would you be okay with the 9 and 3?
Yeah.
I make a friendly motion then that we amend, approve it as submitted, except a 9-month term of the contract with a 3-month option instead of the existing language of 12 months with a 6-month option.
So we had a motion made and seconded to approve the resolution. Now we've got a motion to approve the resolution subject to amendments.
And whoever seconded that will.
Mr. Bell could offer that as a friendly amendment, and if it is accepted by the party that made the motion, then
Who made the original motion?
Kim.
She's not here.
Well, she told me to do her.
Who did we?
I've got Ken and you, James.
I seconded it.
Yeah, I've got James, but I thought Ken was the one who made the motion.
Yeah.
Okay, Kevin?
I mean, Ken, yes.
Yeah, we're gonna need a motion to,
Okay. So that's, instead of a friendly amendment, that's gonna be a separate motion. Amendment to the motion. So it needs a second, basically.
Yeah, I made a motion.
Okay, second by Mr. Odom. Then we go on that.
it's a precedent, it's a precedential motion, it's a vote.
Okay. So all those in favor of the amendment, or is there any more discussion on that?
My only thing I think is, if they, for some reason, came back and said, no, it's 12, whatever, it goes on. That they won't change that. I mean, that's what I don't want to come back again, so will they change the contract?
They likely won't, but it's possible.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll rely on the sincerity of the staff here. I'll look at it.
Let me offer
my
my
support for the study.
Let me offer this, Board, when this process was submitted to me, in the existing scope it had, it looked like it may have taken a year to do the work, it's the 12 months. And then we typically put lead time in for extensions that don't require payment of additional monies at David's discretion, just so we don't have to come back and bother the board if the only thing is it's running late. The way I read the scope, they've got 9 months to get this done. And so I think that we could hold them
Yeah,
to that.
that's their timeline
Right.
in what they offered us.
And so I think that in this case, the term is a little bit jabberwocky on what the work is to be done. I think the work still needs to be done within that period of time stated, 9 months. That's y'all's intent, right, David? So I think if you approve this, that would be the case. We just need to hold them to their schedules.
So you're saying approve it without the amendment,
I think it would work.
because that's what they approved.
But
It's
our resolution our contract language as the 12 and 6.
It does, it incorporates though the scope, which has that they have to have all those milestones met within that period of time. It's a project schedule, it's on page 116.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that
What's discrepancy between what their document says and what our write-up says in our resolution. I understand that it incorporates that, but it doesn't clean it up for me.
So I'll repeat that. So we've got a motion and a second on the floor to change our resolution to match their statement.
Yeah, I think it would just be a motion, and then I'll go draft another resolution. And it will change, it will also be reflected in the term. So if that's the direction we want to go, then that's what we need. We can.
I think we would be more comfortable.
Not an issue.
All right, any other discussion? So we're voting on the proposed amendment to the resolution. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Now we will vote to approve the resolution itself.
The motion as
The
amended.
motion as amended. So, Mr. Bowman, we heard your issues with the consulting contract. Do you have anything else to add to that?
No, I just wanted to open the discussion so that it becomes a point that we all recognize. That's the only thing I have to do.
Does anyone else have any thoughts concerning that, the consultant, that they want to add at this time?
I just want to commend Don on when they having a close look at it. I lean to him for his 30 plus years of been in this business. And I think it's a sound thing to do to look at it more. So.
More like 50.
More like 100.
I'm sorry.
I said 30 some more hours on the day.
Okay, well, all those in favor then, before Mr. Bell, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? None opposed. So we got that done. Item 17. All right. Now, let's go back to item 7, presentation discussion of the updated report by the Director of Electric Utilities or his designee regarding customer service, business center practice, procedures and policies, customer concerns and complaints, website information, customer metering, billing forms and procedures, and Elk County staffing and performance. Mr. McCollum.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, because I know there's some other board members that have to leave, and we may lose the quorum here pretty shortly. I'm gonna be very brief. On page 22, there's a EMI project recap, and we're gonna update this monthly to show where the project stands. Very important project. It's ongoing. At the chairman's request, we're gonna provide a similar summary for the September board meeting for the capital improvements projects associated with the 115 kV upgrade. So you'll be seeing new project recap for transmission in the next go around. And then on page 24, we had a good month for commercial additions. Got a new brewing company coming in, so that's always exciting. Compete with Austin.
Do they deliver?
We'll have them cater our next board meeting.
They have a drive-through.
Okay.
Is that the Doc's Brewing? Is that
Yeah, Doc's 2 Brewing.
Oh, there it
Or
is.
2 Doc's Brewing. I don't know which 2 doctors that is.
Veterinarians.
Huh?
Veterinarians.
Oh, okay. And that's really all I wanted to touch on. If there's any other questions, I'll try to respond to it.
Any questions for Mr. McCullough concerning the director's report? It's quite thorough, I think. There's good information there. Certainly, peaks for July. I was surprised we didn't get a higher peak when we got to 104.
I was a little surprised myself. I thought that with higher temperatures in July, it was a little higher.
And as always, I find it very helpful. These customer survey comments are very helpful. Appreciate y'all putting all that in there. It's good stuff. And I'd like to applaud you once again for the excellent job that you're doing. Thank you. Appreciate it. I don't tell you enough. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions, comments from Mr. McCollum, Director report? Okay. If not, then we'll go to item 8, presentation and discussion. Financial and capital statements, financing options, audits, and financial policies of Lubbock Power and Light related to debt issuance issues, reserve account funding, cost allocation, revenue and expense projections, purchase power cost recovery factor, customer meter, billing and service issues. Mr. Sayles.
I think Mr. Bertram is,
Looks like the computer was turned off, so restart. I saw James over there.
while we're waiting on that to get restarted, I know we're at the risk of losing a quorum. I can go through the whole financial presentations or condense it, wherever you.
I'm good.
Oh, good.
Okay. Okay, that's fine.
I think we'll be on.
I know it's everybody's favorite part of the presentation.
Well, certainly mine. Along with my add and subtractor. You guys are capital interest.
Clay passages.
Good,
Clay has to. What's in the cuts of that?
It's on the flash drive.
This is like turning the lights out in the gym.
Back in Oregon, we did some of that.
Well, I can come back to the purchase power stuff that I think you probably want to see graphically, but I can walk you through your financials
Okay.
while we're doing that, if that works.
You got the floor.
Okay, on the balance sheet, cash is down about 4.5 million. Oh, there we go. All right. So purchase power that we were talking about. Okay, so you guys were just actually talking about the hotter temperatures in July, and this was something that Mr. McCullough had presented last month, just to show you kind of the average monthly temperature and what the variance is from what we normally see this time of year. And so 106 was a high in May, 108 in June, 105 in July. And that's important because if you recall, last month we talked about heating degree days and cooling degree days and how those are used throughout the industry to determine, kind of what's par for the course, and how that affects load. And so on the left axis, you've got the number of cooling degree days, which are going to be, your blue is last year, 17, and the orange is 18. And so you can see May, June, and July, each one of those, we've had more cooling degree days than we did the previous summer. And then on the right axis, you can see our peak load in megawatts, and the red bar is the peak load in 2018 versus the green one for 2017. So you can see how there's a pretty strong correlation between temperatures and that peak load. So as we've seen more cooling degree days, there's also higher peaks. So we'll probably incorporate that eventually into one of the dashboards, because I think that's interesting information just to have moving forward. But as required by tariff, we always go over the pass-through rate, and so as you all are aware, we lowered the pass-through rate going into June. And so that rate went down from 116 and some change to 112.63. Excel went up to 117.44, and then our survey average went up slightly to 113.08. So in July, we over-collected $2.2 million, which certainly was not the plan. We lowered rates to give money back. So there's two sides of the equation. On the revenue side, we over-collected about $800,000. About $650,000 of that is related to the hotter temperatures. So we sold about 10 million kilowatt hours more than we expected. So we expected to sell 266 million kilowatt hours, and we sold 276. Our models predicted that we'd sell 16.9 million in revenue, came in at 17.7. So when you back out that 650, we were basically off 150,000, which tells me that our model is working on the rate side. The side that's a lot more volatile, that we don't have near as much control, is the expense side. We expected about 17.1 million for the expense, and cost came in just shy of 15.5, and it was almost all related to fuel. And so we had conservative estimates in our budget, or our model, but Excel also missed this. They were expecting to have a true up in July of about 300,000 to get from us, and they ended up giving us back about 750,000. So it was about $1 million swing just on that. And then fuel prices were about, they were actually at $2.90 per MMBTU, where we had in our model about $3.15. So when you combine those two, our conservative budgeting and them missing the mark with fuel, which is good, it went in our favor. But that also takes us outside of our upper bandwidth, and so we recommend that we, because we're about to start the month of September, that we just fix that going into the winter rates, and then give that back as the tariff requires through the winter months.
So basically, we would see what happened with that through December and modify those rates.
Well, if you
through November,
we'll adjust them. We'll bring you a recommendation next month to lower them going into October, because it's October through May is the winter season. And so if we were going to make a change for the summer season, we would have to do it at this meeting to make it effective September 1st. So our recommendation is that we wait until the summer's done and then go into the winter season.
Well, and speaking of turn, if I say, our experience has been is that there can be billing issues that come through that were not in our models in the past.
Right.
So there's really no telling what will come through between now and September.
Right.
Purchase value.
Yes, sir.
So y'all will know by this time next month when you propose something.
Well, the tariff, we have to have set a winter rate and a summer rate. So the winter rate is October through May, and then summer is June through September. And then we can make mid-season adjustments if we get above or below our approved bandwidth. And so since this is outside of that bandwidth, according to the tariff, that's our obligation to let you know that, but also provide a recommendation on that we don't think we need a mid-season adjustment.
And you also, this is still just through July, so,
Right.
We have lowered the pass-through rate. If we have more normalized temperatures, or, we may see that fall below that upper bound anyway, without making any change. So I think it's smart to watch it the next couple of months before we make any significant change there.
Well, I just, I'd like to let it ride, like I said, let it ride.
And sometimes if we react too quickly, it completely goes the other way really fast. And so we've seen
Like right
how
here.
volatile
Like right
it can
there.
be, so we want to make slow, methodical moves on this,
Right.
like we do on roads usually.
So there's no more questions on the pass-through. I'll move on to the rest of the financials.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right. On the income statement, operating revenues are slightly higher than they were at this time last year, about 3.7 or 2.2%. And that's largely still driven by the fact that we normalized the base rate throughout the fiscal year. So we don't have the peak in the summer. So we not over-collected, but we had more revenues in the winter from our customers rather than seeing that peak for them in the summer. On supplies, maintenance, and other charges are really what's driving that. $1.5 million of that 2.3 is related to ERCOT. Another $500,000 was related to KUBRA, if you recall. It was supposed to happen last fiscal year and kind of bled into this fiscal year. So, and then the rest is just some smaller miscellaneous changes. On the balance sheet, cash and investments are down 7.2. Capital assets, we're starting to see that tick up. We actually spent about $4.5 million in CapEx this month, which puts us outpacing depreciation by almost 1.5 times, and that's the biggest we've seen in quite some time. So that's good to see.
Chad, you said cash is down because of what?
The primary driver is CapEx.
Okay.
Your statement of cash flow is the biggest change in the month. We spent about $4.5 million in CapEx. On the liability side of the equation, other is related, because remember we're comparing to year end. Other is related to some year end entries that unwound at the beginning of the first of the year. We've also got OPEB, the other pension or other post-employment benefits related to GASB 75 that we're putting our estimate on the balance sheet and the income statement. We'll true that up at fiscal year end as we get the final numbers in. And then our bonds payable are down about $15 million. And a balance sheet is a snapshot in time. So as you know, we issued bonds in August and or July, and I guess we'll get the funds this month. And you'll see that cash come onto the balance sheet, but so will the liability. So in terms of budget, things are tracking along nicely. Overall revenues are just a little shy of where they were last year. It's driven primarily by purchase power being down compared to the same time last year, which affects our purchase power revenues. The only one that really sticks out on the expense side is transmission, is at about 85%, whereas last year it ended at about 55% of budget. But as we know, the expenses related to ERCOT are really driving those transmission costs. Something to kind of tuck away and keep in the back of your mind is that those will ultimately be recovered in our transmission cost of service rates, and that will be part of our filing there. So, but overall, 69% of budget, and we're 9 months to the fiscal year, so 75 if you're just doing it on a linear basis is where we should be. On the capital program, this is actually cut off. We've got 60 capital projects open, and here is the $4.5 million that I was referencing, Mr. Conrad, that ties back to the statement of cash flows. So you can see chopper upgrade was the majority of that driver, and then we had some miscellaneous work that made up the rest of that. So if there's no more questions, that's all I have.
As far as our balance sheet, this is the end of June.
Yes.
We issued bonds in mid-July.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Proceeds will come in in August.
August, yeah.
So that we talked about it.
Yes.
So the actual investments or cash in the bond market will hit the August.
Yeah. So you'll see restricted investments go up substantially, and then the bonds back.
internet service and all that. We don't have all of our
Right.
funding.
Yeah, so this is not really that unusual for this time of year. That's something that freaks me out every month when I'm doing my analysis.
Well, June of 17, we were down 8.6 million.
Okay, well, there you go.
It's pretty
Right.
small.
But yes, sir, we've paid all of our debt with the exception of one interest payment, which will happen in August. And so we've already paid all of that, but we haven't collected all of our revenues that will come in. And as you know, we collect quite a bit of revenues in the summer in that 4-month window.
Well, and that's really sort of cash, but it's not exactly cash. But
Right.
it's not exactly accrual.
Right.
That's the only question. I guess the only other observation I had was that as far as actual CapEx through June, total year to date is almost 19 million.
Right.
So, good.
Absolutely.
Anybody else have a question?
Jeff, real quick, okay, never mind, I think you touched on it, that transmission supervision, you touched on that.
That's our transmission engineering, and so all of our ERCOT costs, that's where all of that stuff's being booked.
You're looking at 777. Yeah. Anybody else? Question? Okay. Thank you, Chip.
You